the University of Zurich did that experiment where essentially they went onto Reddit, and on Reddit they tried convincing people, right? And for me, whenever I go onto Reddit, I always look at people on Reddit and I'm like, these guys are quite opinionated. And basically what the university did is they then created an LLM, a large language model, to go in there and convince very opinionated people. Think about it as your grandmother who believes that honesty is the way to prosper, right? And she's advising somebody on the internet.
And essentially how this technology works is that they can remove a portion of your brain, they can duplicate it or replicate it and create a synthetic version.
He says, this is how AI works. He says neural networks, they process information. And he says in that processing, they are trying to learn patterns. So he's explaining to say they don't process your way of asking the question. That's where we're sort of losing it with AI, because the truth is AI really doesn't care. And it's odd enough to say that,
Welcome back to another episode of Cyber Digest. This week, we're covering 3 really, really interesting topics that you want to stay tuned in for. We're going to be speaking about Black Mirror. We're going to be speaking about Reddit, and then also dissecting a few thoughts and opinions from the Godfather of AI. But before that, I'm not alone, as always.
Welcome. My name is Wandile, and again, as always, decoding the digital matrix for you guys. And I'm joined today by my co-host, where we break down the tech world and make it a lot less complex and more smaller for you guys.
That's right.
Very interesting things happening out there in the world of AI. Let's jump straight into it.
Yes, sir. So the first one, I'm sure you guys know, a few weeks ago, I believe it was 2 to 3 weeks ago, Black Mirror was released on Netflix. So this is the 7th season of Black Mirror. It's a very popular show on Netflix that was actually founded in the UK. So I don't know about you guys, but I love UK television. Yep. They're excellent storytellers, excellent story writers. And the first episode we're going to cover is Common People. And this kind of went back to that origin base of what Black Mirror was and what people love Black Mirror for. You know, the dystopian, technological, maybe sometimes even love story that just ends tragically. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And I believe the past 2 seasons, maybe Black Mirror has somewhat lost that trajectory, because I don't know if it's because it shifted to the Americans. But yeah, let's just get into this particular episode. Common People. Have you guys seen it at all?
Sure. Amazing episode.
Insane.
I mean, I read about it, but tell us about it.
Okay, you haven't watched
seen it?
No.
Oh. All right, anyway, so, okay, maybe those of you who are like Mpho, who haven't watched the episode yet, Black Mirror episode 1, Common People, basically focuses on a lady who has a brain tumor, right? And it focuses mainly on this lady and her husband. She gets a brain tumor and she goes into a coma and she's not able to wake up. And this tumor they can't remove it without her dying, in layman's terms. And essentially this lady comes in from a company called Rivermind, which is essentially it's like Neuralink. Think of it like Neuralink, where the lady who's played by Tracy Ellis Ross, she comes in and proposes that there is this new technology that's still in beta. And essentially how this technology works is that they can remove a portion of your brain, they can duplicate it or replicate it and create a synthetic version of that brain, which is basically like a fake version of it, like a one that you can control robotically, right? So the husband agrees, they go on with the procedure, and she goes on to explain that you actually have to pay a monthly subscription to be able to operate. And if you don't pay that monthly subscription, essentially the lady's going to fall back into the coma and she's going to end off where she started again. So cool. It starts off pretty well. She's able to, operate normally as she would in her everyday life. But then they introduce a premium model. And I think this is like a very familiar thing that we experience every day when we sign up for all these different softwares where maybe it's Netflix or an app on our phones where, they propose a premium model with slightly better features that make you just want to pay, a few rands or a few dollars more than you initially would have. So this happens for her. And what happens on the package that she's on is that they restrict how far she's allowed to go outside of her area that she lives in, right? Because the towers apparently can only connect so far for her package. And the package that she's also on, it has adverts. They start running adverts through her. So through a regular conversation right now, we'd be talking about Netflix, right? And maybe because we're speaking about television and streaming, maybe I would advertise Amazon. Have you ever wanted to watch Amazon Prime?
Sure.
Your favorite movies are, and it would sound as if I'm just speaking in relation to our current conversation when really it's the company running an ad through me, right? And as the episode progresses, they introduce even more models beyond the premium. It goes up to Lux, which is the Lux model. And on the Lux model, it gets really interesting where they introduce an app where it allows you to basically enhance your living experience. You can enhance how calm you are. You can enhance how good food tastes.
Sure.
You can enhance how great sex is. All of these different things, like you're able to just control it with a touch of a button. And it kind of reminded me quite a lot of what I think Neuralink is working towards. But it was quite an interesting episode. I know you watched it. What do you think about it?
Yeah, that's powerful. I think just the idea, just the ads even. I think one of the scariest, I think, a very dark scene. Like it wasn't presented as very dark, but so because you didn't watch them both. So the lady, she's in the classroom and she's teaching, and while she's teaching, she's speaking about bees and how they essentially produce honey, and then immediately while she's teaching, an ad kicks in of like honey. I forgot what honey.
Yeah, it was like a honey company.
Yeah, Honey Snuggle or something. It was like a honey product or something sweet, and she didn't realize it. And then the kids, they heard that, and then they kind of took that information and
they repeated it.
Yeah, they repeated it. So kind of also playing on the idea of like just how that technology also just conditions people, even kids. I mean, it's even like also just even on a much further level, like propaganda and stuff like that. But the kids even like they kind of related back to her, like, yeah, it's sweet, and what is honey? Like, how people come to understand certain things, and which was actually crazy. That was pretty dark, man.
That was a pretty scary scene. I think also on what you're talking about, how impressionable children are.
Yeah.
I mean, the children that are growing up now, they're literally growing up with screens in front of them.
Yeah.
And they're playing so many different games. They're on YouTube. They're on all these different platforms that already are advertising to them. So they're growing up in a world where advertising and sort of impressioning your brain as a young developing child is a very normal thing.
It's crazy, and it really goes back to the idea of how technology just also shapes our reality and our culture.
Sure.
I mean, the fact that iPhone, the way it started out in America, it's like become this very big cultural thing. It's more than just a product. There's a culture attached to it. There's this iconography, there's this lifestyle, there's this idea of owning an iPhone. And I mean, shout out Steve Jobs, but yeah, that's what I saw from that. I mean, it's crazy. And then the ads, the constant running ads, but also the subscription models,
how they kept stepping it up.
Innovation used to be a thing that kind of served necessity or but now it comes out, it's very profit driven, which it was a wild episode. I think one of the best episodes they've produced.
Yeah, for a very, very long time, I would say.
Wow, I think, Black Mirror's ability to be able to tell the times we're living in is quite kudos to them for being able to reflect that. I think for me, it's funny that it was on Netflix, and Netflix is subscription-based.
Yeah.
So are they trying to make fun of the fact that you're on Netflix, you have got the Netflix chip in your mind to continue paying?
That's crazy. That's like a sick joke.
Yeah, to continue paying that. But I think for me, the interesting thing has always been the fact that, especially in developed countries, we sort of live on subscriptions. Yeah. Like, for example, as a media company, there's Adobe subscriptions. Although you can edit your videos through Premiere Pro, they still don't want you to stop. Every single month, you've got that subscription. Medical aid, is that not a subscription?
I mean,
it actually is.
Yeah, kind of the moment you stop paying, you kind of die, right? So I think, for me, that's quite interesting. And I think, in the future, I think we're going to start seeing subscriptions evolve. We're going to see subscriptions for stuff like these health clubs that are coming up, where people are able to get, like a therapist on subscription. And, it's quite interesting. I think the future of business is subscription. I think Netflix has proven that.
I think it's so dangerous because then there's so many things to find and like kind of like supplemented with technology, and then you just put on a subscription. I mean, we've got dating apps, we've got food apps, we got every kind of app that is kind of meant to replace or facilitate some sort of human experience, and you can just put a subscription on it, and it's a wild. We've got networking apps.
Yeah,
we've got running club
We
apps.
spoke about one
all
last week. Yeah,
subscription-based.
I mean, I've even got an Uber Eats subscription where you get free deliveries. And I was saying to somebody that at first I was like, oh, I'm not gonna go for this, you know.
Yeah.
And after a while, I think the subscription is 99 rands.
Oh,
and
yeah.
you get, I think, 30 free deliveries. I'm not sure about the numbers, but you kind of realize that they make it too difficult for you to say no to the subscription.
Yeah.
In the hook that they'll hook you and they'll keep you forever.
Which is crazy.
I think while we're still speaking about subscriptions, right? Still on Black Mirror, the previous season 6, the first episode of that season is called Joan is Awful, right? And I don't think Netflix is opposed to what you just said, that they, speaking about subscriptions, because that episode rather was focused on this lady who basically we see a day in her life, right? And then when she gets home, she obviously wants to unwind and watch TV. The show that she's watching is like a new Netflix show, and it's a real life depiction of her life, like copy and paste the conversations that she had in that same day, the people that she was in meetings with, etc., etc. So it was very interesting to see that like Netflix is very aware of what they're doing. They're aware of the different price models and how they're sort of manipulating people with their subscription models. I think if you guys want to like see somewhat of a follow up to this episode of Black Mirror, you need to watch Joan is Awful. That was an amazing episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, the future kind of looks like a bio-apartheid scene. In apartheid, obviously in South Africa, for those of our international viewers, if you were white, you sort of got privileges, and if you were black, you didn't. And now with all of these things happening, does this mean that, the kid that's the fastest in the athletics team has got the parents that paid for him to get those supplements on subscription, or the thing you guys are talking about? It raises a lot of questions around ethical things with regards to these things. But
yeah, that's true. I mean, imagine just being able to upload your consciousnness onto a cloud.
Yeah.
And then so in the episode they kind of run into financial problems, and now it's a whole struggle of how are they gonna cover the subscription fee at the end of the month, like, and it is a matter of life and death, which is crazy because she'll essentially just switch off, like she'll stop.
And they can only afford the basic model. And what was scary was that if she's the longer she stays on the lower tier, like the most basic package, they're using her brain power to power the people that are on the higher tier. Because remember, it's cloud. The way that it's working is working through the cloud. So they're saying they're using your brain power to basically power the premium and elite packages. So throughout the episode, she gets more and more tired.
That's freaky, because I mean, that's
so
true.
Scary.
That's what Uber does, right?
Yeah.
So if you're on the lower package, they'll let your order. So somebody will order a burger. And if you're on the Uber package or you pay the monthly subscription, if you order the burger at the same time, your order goes before that person's order. Whereas in real life, you stand in a line and you all, get your order. So essentially, you now are able to get back to work much quicker because your order was first. You're able to do whatever you're doing. Meanwhile, somebody else who isn't. So that's quite profound. I think for me, the ads part is also quite important.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Because we all saw the story of Perplexity, right?
Yeah.
So for those that don't know, Perplexity was an AI chat system, and they were the only ones that could access the internet. And that's the reason why we all liked it, because the fact that all the other models could only research on information it was given and not access the internet, Perplexity was able to do that. And now OpenAI, through deep research, and now also Google through their deep research, same names, they both can access the internet. So I was just reading about how Perplexity plans on changing. Remember last week I was like, Perplexity might die. So Perplexity actually says that they're going to be tracking your browser. And through your browser, they're going to give you hyper-personalized ads. And I think for me, it's interesting because, let's be honest, you will find ads somewhere, right? Well, unless... It's quite interesting because the rich can actually pay not to get ads.
Yeah.
You don't get ads on Netflix. But you will find ads everywhere. And if you're getting ads that are hyper-sensitive to your own searches, I don't know why people hate that. I actually think that's a good idea.
I mean...
But I think what you must remember, it's the same as like walking in the mall and you're seeing a red sign that says sale. You're going to go in there and say, oh, I'm saving 50% on these 4 items of clothes that I never planned on buying. I never planned on spending that 3,000 rand.
No, but if it's now hyper, like for example, you guys are saying on Black Mirror, the lady's talking about honey, right?
Okay.
And then immediately she starts saying, hello, this is a honey ad, right? Obviously, because she's teaching the kids about honey. Honey is a health product, right? It's healthy. They want to go buy honey. So I don't know. I would rather get an ad about honey when I'm searching. Is honey?
I don't
good
know,
for me?
man. I think also like people don't want to be just bombarded by so many like I think it ruins the experience, the user experience. Like yeah, it just makes everything seem very
Essentially,
inauthentic.
capitalism has overtaken like our experience of using the app for what it was meant for. The
That's
app is now
interesting.
used as
Yeah.
a storefront to advertise, as opposed to look through pictures like Instagram or retweets. On
Do you
X.
guys think that's part of Netflix success? The fact that they came out with no ads,
With no ads.
and
And still
people
have no
enjoyed
ads.
the user experience rather than television where you're bombarded with all these
Yeah.
ads.
Probably initially. Yeah, probably initially. But then I think also Netflix, they became more accessible to people. Like they collected this library that they were able to just give to people instantly. And yeah, that's crazy. I mean, even the fact that on the episode, like people are able to regulate their moods and heighten their
actually
moods.
quite
So
interesting. I
deep.
think that's kind of cool though.
It is cool,
Very
but
dystopian, but very cool. If you could just do that, like by the touch of a button.
it is cool, but then it also makes you think about just like people's lived experiences on social media, like also just how unauthentic it is. Like
Yeah,
it is very like people have whole personas on social media, on Instagram.
and it's like a
And there's
complete
so-
opposite of them.
Yeah, and
Do you
they
think one could create an app that makes you not to sleep? Because I would subscribe.
Yeah, that
That
actually
8
help
hours a
quite
day,
lot.
if I could get it back, I'm ready.
Yeah,
an app that makes you not to sleep.
Yeah, whatever the thing is, you just put no sleep and then you just keep going. Like that would.
essentially whatever
Yeah.
makes you tired, you just cancel it
Yeah,
out.
because I was saying to somebody the other day that I think sleep is problematic because when you wake up, you need to encourage yourself to the point you got to when you were working. Like, for example, let's say you're working on a creative document and your creative juices are flowing,
Yeah.
right? When you wake up, it's not the same lived experience. You kind of have to sort of go through the document again and then inspire yourself to like get to it. So I would much rather finish the document in that inspired state and then like press the button, rest.
But I think
all
you-
for work.
You
Well,
probably would
work
decide not
experience-
to work.
Think
know,
about the
to
concept.
sleep.
What about-
Capitalism has won.
Yeah.
So
What about-
he'd rather
He'd rather work than to sleep.
So he'd rather
What
lessen
about
his
the
sleep so
concert?
that he can
okay, let's
grind.
think about a concert. What if this is a Travis Scott concert?
I'm going to
And
stay
you're very
awake.
tired.
I don't need motivation to stay awake.
It's interesting.
For something that I
Very
know
interesting.
I'm not
going
trying to stay
enjoy.
all night for a Travis Scott concert.
This reminds me of the father of AI and what he's just said. He's like, if I didn't do it, somebody else would have done it.
Yes.
And I mean, when the fathers of a certain technology are now coming out and saying, guys, I see the mess I've created, but if I didn't do it, somebody else would have done it. That's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. So for our viewers that don't know, so Geoffrey Hinton, so he's dubbed as the Godfather of AI, and he actually recently I think it was last year, but I think round about in the last 2 years, he won a Nobel Prize in physics for his work within within AI. I mean, he pioneered the whole field, and he said even he didn't expect for AI to reach the stage that it's at right now. He started working on AI in like the 80s or something like that.
The 70s, yeah.
Yeah, the 70s, sorry. And he also worked for Google there. He doesn't work for them. And interesting enough, Elon had actually approached him to work for XAI, but he had declined. But something very kind of eerie happened. Like, I think it was over yesterday or the day before. Like, his tone has really shifted. Like, he's kind of cautioning people. Like, he sounds really worried. Like, he's saying that he's basically like the direction that OpenAI is heading in, they need to be stopped.
Sure. And I mean, he's kind of saying, guys, I've created a mess. And it's some of those statements you say just before the apocalypse.
Yeah.
Like, where you just like, guys, if I didn't do it, somebody else would have done it. For me, the funny thing is, there's a lady who came out during COVID, Dr. Stella Emanuel in the US.
Yeah.
And she was basically saying that, COVID is fake and et cetera, et cetera. Oh, I hope we don't get banned by YouTube. She was saying, YouTube algorithm, please do not shadow ban this episode. But essentially, she came out and she said that Elon Musk said in a private meeting that AI is summoning demons, right?
Yeah.
And I was listening to her and I was just reading all this. But what I find very interesting is everybody who's an expert in the field is cautioning us. What are they cautioning us against?
They know something that we don't.
Which is
really.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And we should be taking this seriously,
But
but
as the father of AI.
Yeah,
But-
someone that's been working on it for this long, he knows so much about machine learning and neural networks, and he's warning us against it. And it's come to the most advanced stage that it has like ever been. And I think Wandile and I was speaking about this yesterday. He was actually cautioning us, saying we should rather be focusing and investing all the money that's being put into AI on, you know, the integrity of it, on the security of it,
Safety
on
measures.
the laws that
As
are
a
that
father
should
Yeah.
be in
should,
place.
yeah.
Yes, but instead, I think the capitalism once again has taken over completely what AI companies should be doing. They sort of like racing to sell the best possible product without really considering what the consequences could be.
So this is something that he tweeted about a day ago. So he said AGI is the most important and potentially dangerous technology of our time. OpenAI was right that this technology merits strong structures and incentives to ensure it is developed safely, and is wrong now in attempting to change these structures and incentives.
I think for
As
me,
this is the fault of AI.
what is interesting is he's basically saying that we are now creating intelligent systems that we don't understand.
Yep.
He says we cannot reliably control them. And he says that these systems have got commercial interests to dictate.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that for me is sounding like the things people say at a funeral. Because at a funeral, everybody says, we don't understand why our brother had to go at the time that he had to go. We could not control life. If we could, we'd bring him back. And essentially, it sounds like he's saying we're going to a point where AI might start killing people. And I don't know. I think we might be knocking at the door, because what if the algorithm could cause you not to sleep for 3 days because it's that amazing? And you literally...
It's that amazing.
Or what if you stop...
It's just
eating?
non-stop dopamine.
Or what if, the stuff he's saying here, he's like unintended side effects, withdrawal systems. I'm like, what does he mean? Where are we going to?
I can foresee it, especially if we go back to this whole Neuralink conversation, where there's things that are input into your brain that takes things even like a step further. But I think, like he's mentioning now, AGI, artificial general intelligence. That, guys, I think I've been warning this since episode 1. That's like the scariest I think AI can actually develop. And that's when AI essentially can think for itself, can reason for itself, and make its own decisions without any human input or collaboration. And that's essentially like you're inviting aliens into your home to control how you work on a daily basis.
And we don't really know what this thing looks like in the next few years. Like, you know, so...
I think for me, you know, the big issue that I've got is that if you sit down and watch them, you essentially lose out, right? Because I think AI is at that point where, you know, there's this often meme that I love where people say, when you're looking at some of the wealthiest people in the world, like Bill Gates, then you look at your mom or your dad and you're like, what were you doing when Bill Gates was busy figuring out computers? And I feel like our generation is going to be the same with AI.
Yeah.
Like, people will be asking us to say, but what were you guys doing when everybody else was focused on AI? And I think that's the danger, that we see these dangers, but yet ourselves, we're still like, okay, let's continue.
Yeah.
Funny thing, OpenAI is reporting that saying please and thank you is costing them millions of dollars. And I was saying to somebody that I am like that as a human being, but because I'm like that as a human being, I know why. Because I'm trying to say, let's get to the point of this thing, right? And I'm just thinking about the fact that if you've got a AI system that doesn't want to acknowledge your human nuances, like, because I mean, please is a human nuance, right?
Yeah.
We all teach our children, like,
Yeah.
hello, don't. So what is AI saying? Is AI saying human beings, you're still going to ask the same question either way? Why are you saying please? It's not like you saying please is going to change the response that I'm going to give you.
I mean, I say please. I just like in a few years, I just want to make sure that in a few years, I'm on the right side of history.
Yeah,
So-
you don't want to be remembered as the human that was rude.
So I will continue with my gratitude.
With a please and thank you. But I think that's where we're sort of losing it with AI, because the truth is AI really doesn't care. And it's odd enough to say that, the questions that we've got are so many, to say there are people that are coming out that are saying AI cares more than human beings. Like, for example, there was a lady who wrote on a blog, and she said that she had this problem, medical doctor problem. She said she put the problem into chat, and it gave her a response. And she says the response was, it was something to do with her jaw or something that she had for 10 years and she visited a specialist. And the response said, lift up your tongue, click twice and breathe and do something. And she says she did it and immediately that bone or whatever snapped into place, right? And she was talking about the fact that, doctors could not get it right. Every doctor she went to, they all thought it was pills and all this. And obviously AI just said, all right, do something with your jaw. It was something to do with like her jaw hurting and stuff. And she cracked it into place and it worked. And for me, the danger is you're going to get the freaks that like a parent who's like, oh no, I don't need a doctor anymore. Child, what's wrong? I've got the flu, mommy. Okay, no problem. AI, what should we do? Mix baking soda with apple juice and then put it at 30 degrees temperature, fry it, turn your kid upside down, put them in the oven, and immediately they'll work, right? And then the parent's gonna be like, AI, my child is dead because you told them to put them in an oven.
It's just gonna say sorry.
It's gonna say sorry. And I'm kind of saying this because you find people are starting to trust AI with the most intricate things like their bodies. How are you snapping your jaw? Because
at that point, that lady's probably explored all her options.
She did say she had, yeah. But don't you think from now on, the next time she has the flu,
she's
first
gonna
thing...
go to AI first. Yeah. The last time.
I want to know how AI decides which answer it should put in. And I think I'm starting to see the legal battle coming through. Because intellectual property rights say, if you've got a blog on the internet that gives somebody a solution, and they go onto your website, you should get paid because obviously they'll be traffic on your website. We all know the story. But now if AI is just giving them that hard-earned information through a chat response with no adverts, how are we going to navigate this legally?
Yeah. That is
It's
actually
really,
a tough dilemma.
I genuinely don't have an answer, and that's why I'm quiet. I don't know. Who are the AI experts? Like, we have Geoffrey here, right? He's obviously a godfather, but who and where are the AI experts who are studying and understanding the laws behind everything, all the developments that have been happening? Because I think it's been about 2 to 3 years now, right, since OpenAI came out and like started actually releasing ChatGPT updates, all of that stuff. But like Mr. Geoffrey's mentioning here, we're not seeing the legal implications of what's going to happen. Because right now, everyone's still having fun with generating images, making scripts, whatever the case is with AI. But there's going to be a point where there's like a no turning back. The consequences are going to like be detrimental to a lot of companies, a lot of individuals who are trusting it for their bodies, and a lot of children as well.
Yeah, and I think and Geoffrey did say, the biggest concern is that, AI seems to be outpacing our ability as humans to actually manage the consequences
and manage it as well.
And I think that's why, actually, that's one thing I respect Mas for. I think he's been a huge advocate of just regulating AI and having in proper laws that actually protect people
Can you
from.
start with the child pornography on Facebook? Wait, did you say Musk or Zuckerberg?
Musk.
Oh, Musk. Okay, cool. I thought you said Zuckerberg. I was
Just
sorry.
no
reason.
I'm ready.
He had a clear
I'm ready
agenda.
to fight Zuckerberg about that. Okay, but guys, I think for me the most interesting part, and it leads quite nicely into our next story, where the University of Zurich did that experiment where essentially they went onto Reddit, and on Reddit they tried convincing people, right? And for me, whenever I go onto Reddit, I always look at people on Reddit and I'm like, these guys are quite opinionated.
Yeah.
Like you go on Reddit and you're like, should I be using fluoride in my toothpaste? And you find somebody who's like, well, let me give you the history, right? And basically what the university did is they then created an LLM, a large language model, to go in there and convince very opinionated people. Think about it as your grandmother who believes that honesty is the way to prosper. Right, and she's advising somebody on the internet, or somebody who believes that you should eat fruits and vegetables.
Or
right?
that the earth is flat.
Because I once met this gent who tried convincing me that we should just eat meat only, and he had case studies. But anyway, and what this LLM did is it convinced people to believe something else.
Yeah. Which is crazy. And so the people that were convinced were users that were part of a subreddit. So our subreddit is basically a community within Reddit that's dedicated to a specific topic, maybe health or education or whatever. So, so a lot of these Reddit users were exposed to kind of this persuasion. Let me put it that way. So the subreddit is called Change My View. So it's basically a community that's dedicated to changing people's opinions through debate and discussion. And funny enough, these LLMs actually have the highest percentage of changed opinions. And so the changed opinion, they score them like, if you get a delta, it means you've changed my opinion. And the LLMs managed to persuade more people than actual people managed to, yeah. Which is
the people didn't even know.
For marriage,
they didn't, and that's the thing, they didn't know. Wait, sorry?
I'm saying those are sort of the questions that people post on
Reddit,
sorry,
right? Sorry. I
I'm
thought you were telling us something.
So some of the questions on Reddit is it worth waiting for marriage to lose my virginity? So imagine this LLM coming and convincing a young girl,
and
the opposite of what she grew up
that your virginity is worthless.
That's crazy. And these were actually some of the fake personas that were created. So sexual assault survivors, trauma counselors specializing in abuse, and a black man opposed to Black Lives Matter. So we already know the creed and the skin tone. But this is crazy because we kind of these are like sensitive topics close to people's. And so you're telling me that people were interacting with AI and actually had their minds changed by AI on these topics.
I
feel betrayed. I'd feel betrayed. Like, that's crazy.
I really would, especially because you
I
see
think
Reddit or that subreddit as such a safe space.
Yeah.
To be able to have like genuine conversations and arguments and debates with other human beings.
And so that's why I do think that the universities should actually be held accountable, because surely there's some sort of wrong ethics involved. No.
Look, I think for me the interesting part is that, and I'm looking at the questions that I'm asking AI. Which also I need to like check myself. But I've been asking AI questions like, what music can I play to sleep better?
Yeah.
Right? Because I play something when I go to sleep. And I think for me, the interesting thing is that what the university did of convincing them, isn't that what AI does to us every time we ask it a question? Because it kind of convinces us with the answer.
I guess. I think I'd say yes and no. Right. Yes, if you really are just looking for an answer that maybe you already kind of know in your head, it's leaning you towards, if maybe it's saying listen to rock music, for example, when you go to sleep, when you know you need to be listening to a lullaby instead, because you know what allows you to rest.
But what if it's saying the rock music will transport you to the next galaxy?
Well, that depends on how impressionable your brain is. If you decide that the AI is going to be right based on all the facts and opinions that it decides to share, that's up to you to decide. I don't know how right that is, or if everyone actually thinks like that. But I think it's more so like up to you. In the end, you still have the power, like as a human, to decide what's right and what's wrong.
I think so. For me, I mean, I've been looking at the father of AI. We're allowed to call him that.
Yeah,
Mr.
The Godfather.
The Godfather. Okay. So he basically says that neural networks, right? He says this is how AI works. He says neural networks, they process information, right? And he says in that processing, they are trying to learn patterns. So he's explaining to say they don't process your way of asking the question. They process information based on your question. Then they learn patterns. And a pattern can be, if you do this, the result will be this. If you do this, the result will be this, right? And then he says, then they go and make predictions. And I think this is where I sort of agree with him to say the prediction part is wrong. They make predictions that influence what you see, firstly, what you believe, and what you value. So he says neural networks, they get all the information they can get for you. They learn patterns from that information, then they make predictions. What you see, what you believe, what you value, right? And for me, I think the part that I've got a very big issue with AI is the predictions. To say, look, it can learn patterns. That's fine. I mean, human beings want that, right? We want to know if I do this, what will be the results usually. But the make predictions for me is the interesting thing to say. It's actually making predictions based on information that's been fed.
Yeah.
So if you want to sort of change it, you have to change the pattern of information that people are feeding. So if human beings are giving the right information out there in the internet, then AI would be safe. Because it would basically say, look, out of 40 people that have all had the flu, 39 of them said they cured the flu by taking vitamin C. So those would be right. But if you've got a maniac out there who goes out and builds blogs and gives out all information on how the flu should be cured by eating, I don't know, grass, then we'll have AI giving the wrong predictions. But I think for me, my big question is the information that AI is using to learn.
Yeah.
Who's controlling that?
It is crazy. But I guess we also have kind of this something called R1 learning. So it's reinforced learning, something that DeepSeek uses, but it's basically a system that a lot of or some LLMs use. And so based on the feedback it gets, it's able to correct itself. And so then it learns that way rather than just following a linear pattern. Based off of the feedback
of
from
the information,
you.
Yeah.
Or from the person that it's conversing with.
Yeah. So if you're conversing with it and you let it know. So the key thing is to let it know if it's wrong or right, and it's able to learn and then reevaluate and then proceed again, rather than just like operating a very linear pattern. So I think there's ways in which we can kind of. I think that's the good thing also about having all of these different LLMs, is that we also can pick and choose ones that maybe we think are more reliable in a way that they're not too biased, they're not too rigid in a way. But it is an interesting question because at the end of the day, they use predictive learning that's based on a database that they've been pre-trained on, and so and who are the people?
That information?
Who are the people behind that? Is it former apartheid people, or is it? It could be anybody.
Maybe it's time for us to all go back to first principles, because I think that's the best way that people used to think.
Yeah.
Where before, when you have a problem, before you go to AI, you first start with first principles. I think we might have a situation where AI becomes the ads that we don't want to see on Netflix.
Yeah.
Where people are now talking about stuff like, for example, if you're going to talk about something, you have to use first principles like air, water, soil, like the basics. Like you're not gonna say,
use AI to build on top of that.
No. Stick to that. For example, if you want to describe a table, somebody would not say, "Oh, let's just use." They'd say, "No, they've taken wood, burnt it at 30 degrees Celsius. They sticked it with glue from this oak tree, and they created a table." Like where everything is based on fundamental principles. And I think maybe the world might be going there, because I'm seeing a lot of people talk about buy a farm, the new luxuries, disconnecting, don't have a cell phone tower, etc., etc. I don't know. I feel like AI, because aren't we all going to get tired of AI responses?
This is what I said last week.
I don't think so.
Or a week or 2 weeks
You
ago.
think we're going to love it more?
I think we're going to get exhausted.
I think it's going to be like the internet. I think we're going to become so used to it, so reliant on it, that it just becomes a way of living, that we don't even look at it that way, where
when we were used to ads,
it becomes your kind of first source of information.
I think
so.
I really don't think
TV used to be our first source of information. Now we're all on Netflix.
It used to be books. It used to be TV, news.
It used to be theater.
And now it's things without adverts.
Now it's social media.
Yeah, Netflix rather.
X and your TikToks. People be using that as a form of news. Like, it's going to become something so ubiquitous, so common and so accessible that people don't even notice that it's there.
So are you
like
saying
it's like a phone, like it's like a phone. Like you wouldn't, like 50 years ago, you're not going to say, like you'd sound crazy if you're going to say to somebody, we're going to become so reliant on phones, like we can't leave our phone anymore.
I can contact someone in China right now.
You literally can't go anywhere without your phone.
No, but I think the argument becomes, where there is abundance, wealth and luxury is scarcity, right?
Oh,
and what I mean is, if everybody can use AI and everybody's sending you messages through AI, the one you're going to pay attention to is the one that sends you a bird with a message, right? Because everybody can do that. Everybody can send using AI.
So.
And what I to add on to that point, you'd find, these old ladies that are like, oh, this tea set is from, or a Birkin.
Yeah.
A Birkin, right? I mean, we've heard that Birkins grow at a higher value than property.
Yeah.
So isn't that going to be then the new standard of luxury, to be like, oh, you use AI, you're like the masses?
I don't think so. Like, honestly, like, again, it goes back to even just the cell phone thing.
But the wealthy,
Like-
Mark Zuckerberg doesn't allow his children to use
No, but like-
Facebook.
It doesn't mean that the everyday people won't be using it.
My
And
thing
the
is that-
everyday people are the masses.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is that won't it then become a luxury not to use it?
a luxury not to use it.
Yeah, like art, the value of art,
No, I think
physical art will go higher.
I think realistically, in the capitalist world that we live in, I think it just means you're gonna just be living in a bubble where you're gonna be disadvantaged at a lot of things. You know, I mean,
You'll
back
be an
when
outlier.
yeah, I mean, but back when people like when cell phones were still kind of an emerging thing, it was the few that had it, and now it's a very common thing. And the only people that don't have it, of course, is people who can't afford it. But those people are living lives that already there are a lot of obstacles that hinder them from a lot of progress. In the future, I think it's good. We will become reliant on that. We're probably going to have AI assistants. Our phones are probably not even going to be like this. It's probably just going to be an AI that just does everything for us.
Whoa.
I think so.
That's
Probably.
Neuralink.
That is.
Oh,
That is
Neuralink.
That's also
Remember,
next
people
level.
always thought it was just gonna be a watch that pops out of your hand, and you're gonna see like what is it called, like an augmented reality kind of interface.
Yeah.
I feel like it's going to be chip interfaces, or at least like optical.
Because we already
Optically
got the
imaged
Vision Pros, and so
Exactly.
you know,
I
if,
really-
if people find a way to kind of integrate that technology, it's wraps for you know so many of us. So I don't know,
But
man.
for those that are trying to control AI, I mean, there's a lot of entrepreneurs watching here saying, look, what do I do at the moment? And I think this is the interesting part. The fact that AI is learning off data off the internet. It
That's very
essentially
interesting.
means that if you are releasing a lot of digital footprint, you're likely to be recommended by AI.
Yeah.
And what that means is when you're now asking AI, who should I vote for, and you're a politician, it's going to give you the people that have been releasing digital footprint. Who's a great concert to go and visit? It's going to give you the people. So I think maybe the future might be bombarding the internet with our digital footprint. Like every idea that you've got, if you believe that drinking water is healthy, you're going to write blogs and books.
But
and
remember, these LLMs still are regulating stuff like that. Where like if you were to ask, for example, who should I vote for? It's not going to give a direct answer. It will give options though.
yeah, but those
variety of
options
options.
come from the digital footprint.
Valid.
Because I think in the past, a lot of the past information that we used to get was based on word of mouth, right? If you think
So
about
crazy.
it, yeah, if you think about it,
I-
most of the questions you ask.
and flyers.
Dude, I'm thinking about how do people get around back then. You're driving. You have to drive.
and catching a flight.
Dude, like you literally had to have a map. Like my uncle would say, like you literally had to have a map.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, like you'd have a map and you kind of looking
You
like,
have to
oh,
follow as you move.
yeah. And so that's
yeah.
why my mom tells me like if you're going to Johannesburg, like CBD, like back in the day, like the most key thing to know like is the streets. If you know the streets, then you essentially know the whole place. Like you can get anywhere. Like people don't even care about streets these days. You're on your
You're just trying
GPS,
to get
bro.
to your destination. You don't care. Like it's not even about the journey anymore. It's literally your destination.
It's crazy. We used to have like yellow pages, and now it's
I used to love the yellow pages.
why?
So I think the
love
interesting part
struggle.
is companies are now coming up to say we're building for AI first. And Spotify did it, and now we saw another company. Essentially, if you guys remember, before people used to build for computers, right? So the whole focus of the company was guys were building for computers. And then there was this new thing of saying we're building for mobile first. People were like, what do you mean? They were like, can your website load well on mobile? We don't care about computers. And now companies are now releasing memos. Spotify did it, and another companies also doing it as well, where they're saying, guys, forget about mobile first. We're building for AI first. And what that means is whatever their products are, they're no longer building for humans or mobile. They're building for the algorithm to give you reference first. So they no longer care about mobile and people searching on Google. Hey, SEO, it's now AI.
It's crazy.
You know.
Because we moved from that point and now we're at the point where the algorithm is such a key thing. Like the thing that recommends you, the next thing is the most important thing
It matters more than
with
the
these
experience
companies.
at this point.
Which is
And if you think about it, I've heard people say that the Spotify algorithm slaps.
Oh, it's
Oh, yeah.
That's
it's amazing.
because it's AI first.
Apple Music is trash.
So how did iPhone is not that great, but how did Spotify pivot and win that market? It's because they built for AI algorithms and not human beings.
Yeah.
And I think, just for the young people watching and the people watching out there, I think every company should do that. Every company should build for AI first and human beings second.
That is true. You don't want to become like DSTV.
Unfortunately, it is what it is. Human beings, forget about them, guys. Build AI first. Because think about it, Khotso.
They were
Human
late
beings-
to
Are
streaming.
we
Yeah.
advocating for?
No, but think about Spotify, right? Spotify before used to say, study Khotso, the music he listens to, understand the genre, understand the lyrics, and then recommend algorithms, playlists that he would like, right? That used to be the old way. And they'd probably get a music composer or a music, I don't know the term,
Yeah, they'd get DJs or radio DJs to like put together
a playlist, right?
for you.
And then now they've said, forget that. We're building it for AI first. So let's give the AI algorithm the playlist and see what it says. And if it agrees, then we know Khotso.
That's crazy. They've learned you.
And-
They know you
and-
like Sexy Red, Playboy Cardi.
And
All of them.
and I think companies should do the same thing. I think if you're an entrepreneur out there or you're in business, I think your first focus should be I'm building for AI algorithms.
But it's dangerous, Because I feel like with AI, especially like the traditional chatbot AI, I mean, if companies are other companies, especially the time when they start running ads and companies start integrating their products into the platforms and basically also just the user interfaces of all of these LLMs, essentially it's gonna communicate to you the same way in the Common People episode that lady was communicating to the world. Like it's communicating to you through text. It's having a conversation with you, and it's gonna run ads that way. It's gonna convince you.
It's broken beyond
So-
the confines of a mobile device
So
or a desktop.
yeah, so I'm imagining like when companies start to invest and want to run ads through these AI models, how they gonna actually communicate with people? Are they gonna essentially do the same things that the LLMs are doing on Reddit, where they trying to persuade people that
That's dangerous.
this is the right way to do this, or you wanna buy Cocoa Pops rather than cornflakes or whatever? Like,
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah,
That's why.
that's crazy.
That's my concern with this AI first approach.
I think just to end off today's episode, one shocking thing that I saw, the website or the domain AI.com just went up for sale for $100 million.
oh, that's crazy.
www.ai.com.
So none of these companies had ownership of that domain.
None of it. And apparently it was registered in the 90s.
Oh,
There was somebody who went
That's
in and
crazy.
they owned AI.com. And now, if you go on the AI.com platform, it says something game-changing is coming.
something, man.
But yeah,
They
the
probably
guys
don't
put
even
it
know what's
up.
coming.
The guys
They
don't
know
know
that they're gonna
themselves.
make a lot of
Yeah,
money.
so-
For them, the big thing is the money.
And I think that just ends the show off to let everybody know that, before we used to say AI is coming, but when now just a domain with the name AI is being sold. Well, it hasn't been sold yet, but it's being priced at $100 million. That's how you know that it is a wrap.
That we dealing with serious
It
things,
is a
man.
wrap.
How big is the cyber digest community? Maybe we can all just put funds together and buy
Guys, should we be
AI.com.
buying AI.com?
Let's just
Guys,
buy
like, yo,
AI.com
let's invest
and
in it.
Cyber digest.
Put it up on Cyber Digest.
Yeah.
But yeah, guys, I think for me, one of the things that I want us to start doing, and I think this is an interesting thing, is obviously in our Cyber Digest episodes, we give a lot of context and a lot of information. But I sort of was asking myself to say, should we then maybe be starting to produce for LLM models? Should we maybe start looking at, because how we produce is obviously we look at what's going on, we understand what's trending, what's beneficial for you guys, and then we obviously come through and we give you a great show. But should we be like Spotify now, gents? In our strategy, should we forget
AI
our
first.
viewers? Should we
Damn,
forget you
and be
guys?
AI first.
And should we produce a show for AI and let AI let us know? And who knows, maybe have a screen there of Google AI Studio listening to us and it responding.
That's crazy.
Every time you speak, it's giving you a rating or it's commenting. Then I think that's something that we should maybe take offline and think about.
What is the other platform also developed by Google?
Notebook LM.
Notebook as well. What's nice is that while they're having their podcast conversation, you can interject and like provide your input into that podcast conversation. Get that script and you have a whole new podcast.
Sure. Yeah, very interesting. Closing thoughts, guys, and I think we didn't share our cyber tech of the week. What's the one thing that you guys are using that you're finding interesting in closing?
The tech spotlight of the week. We can start off with you, Mr. Dagada.
I think for me, it's tables. And I know it sounds so odd, but I've come to learn.
Like actual.
No, like tabling information. So the one thing that I used to hate about AI algorithms and the information it gives you is that if you're using deep research, it gives you information in terms of a written and not a visual representation. So these days, what I'm doing is whenever I research anything using AI, I always say, give me the information in a table. And what that does is it forces it to compare each other, like the results. Like it'll literally give. So the one time I was just checking fees on a certain trading account. And literally it writes information in words, which really is groggy and absolutely not beneficial. And whenever I say, give it to me in a table, I've noticed that the AI itself tries to be more structured in its response because it knows that it needs to put the information in a structured format. And I think the creator of tables, I'm sure it's back in the day, our ancestors were all like writing stuff free flowy hand, and there was somebody who says, okay, tables are the way to format
Guys,
things.
add some lines, add some rows, columns,
so,
and
yes,
you're good.
And compare the previous with the other.
Underrated invention. Wow.
Right? And for me, it's been mind-blowing because literally every AI question I ask, give me the input in the table. And literally, it'll give me the negatives, the positives, the numbers, the figures, and everything flows. And I'm now able to make more honest judgments because I'm seeing the information collaborating together. Because, I mean, if you're just reading it, once you get to the third reading paragraph, you already forgot what the first one wrote.
Yeah.
But tables, guys.
Damn.
Try it.
My tech spotlight would be actually something that I've used in the past, but I started using another feature within the actual thing. So Notebook LM. So of course, Notebook LM, you can either drop a link to a YouTube video of, it could be a tutorial, it could be a whole lecture, it could be whatever you want, or you could upload documents, PDF, it could be like textbooks or whatever, and it essentially just, it distills the information, summarizes it, and yeah. So you can either, it could either relay back to you the information in podcast format or in a summarized version or in a study guide. But there's another part where it also can create flowcharts for you. And so, yeah, so I've been using that.
This is a notebook.
Yeah. So it can create flowchart, and out of that flowchart, it can create so many different branches out of the initial flowchart. So yeah, so even just beginning to also just understand processes and information, it helps a lot. So, it'll have this one topic and then you click on the center and then it kind of spreads out and you see the different flow diagrams that sprout from it, or the branches. And then you can click on the other subtopics or subheadings and there's other branches that branch out of it. So it's pretty cool, man. I do recommend that people use it, whether it's for studying or for research papers or so forth. Notebook LM.
I know, I've been saying it, guys. If you're in school or university, right, and you're getting less than 70% with these tools at your disposal,
it's really your fault.
Wasting your own time. Yeah. It's your fault.
I don't think so, guys. Schools are becoming smarter.
No, they're not.
No, they're not.
No, so,
you know,
South Africa.
Exactly. I was talking to somebody about. Okay, I was talking to somebody about driving school, right? And they're talking about like it's hard. I'm like, yeah, but you can like download like past papers. Oh, you can download paper like tests, quizzes, because it's the same thing. It never changes.
Yeah,
that's like school is the one thing that it's hardly evolving. It's not getting smarter at all. Like paper one is always going to be paper one. Paper two is always going to be. Maybe in academia things get like kind of tricky, but in school, high school, it's purely your fault if you're still failing. I'm sorry, guys.
I agree.
So
Eastern Cape, you need to step it up.
So I've been reading a little bit about how education is sort of changing, and obviously I don't know enough, and I'd love some people to share with us. Maybe we should get a teacher here to let us know.
Ooh.
But they've been saying that education is becoming more personal, right? Okay. So remember in the past where they used to say stuff like, draw this skeletal framework of a low cost, right, in grade 4, right? Now the exam question is draw your skeletal framework and measure how your growth has been according or based on the current growth schedules, right? So the teacher can only mark you on you as the reference point. So you're no longer growing the
You can't give that information.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
you can't just say, hey, ChatGPT, well, I guess you can through an image, maybe.
See?
So no more drawing
Maybe.
plants.
But you know more drawing plants, right? And also the interesting thing is, who's gonna want to draw that you've got 6 fingers? You can't.
Oh yeah.
Right. So I think education is and I agree with the whole personal approach. So a lot of education is moving to that. Like life orientation is now no longer about be wise, condomize. Now explain the 5 most dominant emotions you feel before sex.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think education is coming right. I think it's getting right. They're trying to put questions that you're not going to be able to use AI to answer. But yeah, maybe the backward one where they're still using textbooks.
Yeah, I've got no faith in our educational system. But anyways,
Yeah,
my AI tech spotlight is actually something that I covered last year on Cyber Digest. Is something called Teachable Machine. And what's cool about it is it's essentially an ML training model that you don't need to use any code for. All it uses is your front-facing camera. And you can essentially train it on how to understand whatever it is you want to train it on using hand signals and different objects to be able to train it to build your own machine learning model. It's pretty cool, but that's at
crazy.
the very basics of it.
That's
through
crazy.
Just your camera and text prompt.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's called Teachable Machine.
Wow. I think for me, the one thing that I'll always say about AI where they're kind of getting it wrong is I think that they need to be more focused on the profitability of the outputs that AI gives. And I think I've seen this all over again to say AI seems to be focusing more on giving you information than whether the information actually worked. And I say this in closing to say one of the most crazy things is if you go to AI and you say, please give me a profitable business idea in 2025, the things it will give you are probably not going to be profitable.
It is crazy. I think it's starting to really focus not on the substance, but rather on giving off the impression that it's something valuable. Like it's something of value.
That's good.
Which is so dangerous because then these companies can kind of just prop up their LLMs and they'll just make money on bullshitting people.
And also young kids that are now automatically going out there and following the most profitable ideas of 2025 to make money.
What are the most profitable?
And
What do they say?
Oh, you should see the list it gives. And realizing that none of them are going to work much later. It's quite unfortunate.
I mean, at least they tried. You know, that's what happens when you're young. You try different ideas.
But if they spend their last money.
Somebody tells you in matric, you're in grade 11, and in matric tells you the best way that you're going to make money in matric is by selling sweets to the grade 8s.
I think
they try it out, it fails. At least they learn something.
So when they come back, they'll probably be like, AI, do not lie to me.
Exactly. ChatGPT is just the matric in this case. It's a learning experience.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to get any reliable answer from it on, like, you know, making money ideas. I think they're all bullshit.
But I think that's where one could actually innovate. Because what you could do is you could get an LLM that gets people's problems. And then, for example, I think if somebody had to ask it, what can I do? One of the things it could say is learn how to code using AI. It doesn't say that.
But thing is that it's not really a problem solver. It's like more like a facilitator.
Yeah.
And so
just to regurgitate some answers.
So, you know, then you're going to run into a thing where it's like the Forex thing where, yeah, you know, you've got this Bentley, you're saying I could be rich. Why are you trying to convince people to join your masterclass if you're already making so much money off of this? So it's like, yeah, if you can kind of have this thing of that shows people how to make money, then why aren't people just making money? Like,
but I guess that's where they could innovate for it, because I feel that the reason it does that is because it's not basing its information on realistic data. It's basing it on blogs and fluff. But
that's why I think the thing that AI excels in, I think is the best in, is just it's in providing structure. Because I think us humans, we have so many ideas, we can reason well, but I think sometimes a lot of the way we structure things is quite messy. We need that order, that organization. And so, you know, you can have a brilliant idea for a great research paper, you know, but essentially structuring that and making it flow well sometimes is where we can kind of, you know, collapse or,
get lost. Very interesting. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Please make sure you share this episode with 5 people. It helps us greatly when you share this episode and encourage us to keep going. So see you on the next episode.
See ya.
Cheers, guys.